Hello everyone, Discord here and welcome back to another Planet Zoo real life inspiration video. Today we're going to be talking about Porcupine, the African crested porcupine, but we're also going to throw in some Indian porcupines and some Cape porcupines, just to get all the things out there that we need. We're starting off in Dierenrijk Mierloo, starting off with the actual African crested porcupines that we will be getting in the new Arid pack coming out next week already. Woo! We actually got the porcupine reveal the other day and they look freaking amazing, and there we got one in real life as well. So this is a pretty standard enclosure that you'll see for them. Lots of sand, lots of holes, lots of logs. Sometimes you'll also see some concrete pipes. We'll see those in, oh actually we can see them right in the back there as well. It's actually what the porcupine is sleeping in. Yeah, we got all the facets of a standard porcupine enclosure over here. We can also see some banded mongoose in the enclosure. They're often, the porcupine will share its enclosure with either meerkats or mongoose or things like that. So we'll see that in all of the other examples as well. Let's move to the next one. This is Almere Jungle, and this is actually a really cool enclosure in my opinion. It's pretty simple, like Almere Jungle isn't the most high budget things, but they got some cool ideas in here. And what we can see here is a meerkat enclosure, but it's also for the porcupine. So you can see this rock wall with a little ledge to make sure that the meerkats can't get out of it. Over there we can see a glass separation area that the meerkats can get through, but the porcupines can't. This little area is for the African spurred tortoises. But if we go yeah, so that's this area, a little bridge. You're actually going to go under that momentarily. But as we move on, there is actually a hole for us to crawl into. Well, I say hole, it's more of a door, but it does get a bit low as we move in. But inside of this area, we can get a little bit more up close and personal with the porcupine, because this is also their shelter. See, it is a hole after all. So as we crawl into this hole, we will be able to see the porcupine right there. So that's really cool. We get to meet them in their own little home. And there they are. Super awesome. So yeah, that's not all. There is more to this enclosure as well. So let's get out of the hole and keep going. So over here, this is pretty cool. There's like this little pump thing that you can pump. It wasn't working when I was here, but I feel like you would be able to pump this and the water will flow into a little basin area over there, and then it will actually flow back out of the habitat into like the gas path for like some cracks in the pavement, which I thought was really cool. Too bad it wasn't working though, but it was a nice idea right there. We can also see the entrance to their little tunnel over there. Yeah, you can see me pumping it, but it doesn't do anything. But you can imagine what happens, right? The water flows through there into their basin, and it will go out of the hole over there, and it will flow through these cracks. So yeah, it would be really cool if that was functioning. But yeah, over there's the tortoises. We're not here for them, we're here for the porcupine. So here you can see more of their enclosure. Is the meerkat in the back, bless you sir. And we can see there was a little tunnel over there on the left, and that it will bring them to where we started with the enclosure. And over here you can also have a peek down into their tunnel to see what that is like for them. So that's it for Almere Jungle. This is probably one of the cooler enclosures, which doesn't say a lot, I will say, but we're gonna go to the next one. This is Faunepark Flakkee. Nothing too special here, and this is kind of holds true for a lot of these enclosures, but we got a very simple rectangular box with the porcupine over there. There's another shelter over there, which I'm a little confused by. I don't know how a porcupine could comfortably get up in and out of that, but it's there. Also here's some backstage action for you, because why not? That's always fun to see. So let's move to the next zoo. And the next zoo is Malter. It's actually more of a themed family park with a bunch of attractions, but also animals. And this is actually a nice, spacious enclosure for meerkats and porcupine. It's nothing too special in terms of, yeah, theming is not the word I'm looking for, but just decoration and stuff like that. It's just very straight and to the point. There is some like rock work and things. There's also some enrichment here for the meerkats, which I thought was interesting. Some camel fur. But in the back we can see our porcupines sitting on top of the rocks and next to the rocks, next to that little backstage building over there. Yeah, as I said, a very nice spacious enclosure that was a pleasant surprise compared to some of the things we're yet to see, especially for the Indian porcupine, but I won't get ahead of myself. This was Harry Malter. Let's go to the next zoo. And the next zoo is Zoo Maubeuge. I do hope I pronounced that correctly. It's a French zoo, right across the border from Belgium, and it's pretty nice. And we got a pretty decent porcupine enclosure here as well. Some nice rock walls, which is pretty cool. Kind of not the corrugated metal sheets that we'll see in some places, or wood. Yeah, it's just pretty nice. Got a nice sand pit, and then a little backstage view over here, even though the window was one of the most reflective windows I've ever seen. I'll be honest, you can see my beautiful Pairi Daiza shirt over there. But yeah, we have a quick peek at their backstage. Nothing fancy, just whatever the animals need, really. So yeah, that is it for Zoo Maubeuge. So let's move to the next zoo. And the next zoo is Dierenpark Oliemeulen, and here we have their porcupine exhibit. Probably one of the worst ones for the African crested porcupine, to be honest. Tree bark bottom, nothing for them to really dig around in. Very interesting barrier with the brick and then the glass into the brick, but yeah, nothing too special. Now we are going to go to the Cape porcupines, and the first one of those is in Zoo Antwerpen, or Antwerp, and this is a mixed species enclosure with the fox mongoose, or the yellow mongoose, as it's also called. And yeah, we have the Cape porcupine. So similar, just sandy enclosure, lots of burrows also for the mongoose, of course, but I'm pretty sure the porcupine do also burrow, but they were mostly hanging around on the inside. I don't think I've ever actually seen them outside in this zoo. So yeah, that's where they can be found. And there's also a little staircase that we saw just now. You can actually take that staircase up and get a top view of the enclosure as well over here. So that's what we got over here. Then we got the yellow mongoose. Hello there, sir. Yeah, as I said, lots of sand, some burrows, and yeah, some logs and things like that, of course, as well. But that is pretty much it here. So let's move to the next zoo. And the next zoo is Zoo Planckendael. Same company, same species of porcupine. They also have the Cape porcupine over here in the Africa area. And I do really like this enclosure a lot. I like the African theming, the mild African theming. And then the little backstage over here. Also, in this zoo, I've never actually seen them outside. Only seen them over here, sitting in this backstage. We can actually see multiple of them. And I have to try very hard not to cover up the porcupine with reflections, but yeah, that is pretty much all you can see of it. So that's it for Zoo Planckendael already. Moving on to the next zoo, and we're going to move on to the next species, which is the Indian porcupine, which is by far the most common in zoo. And I will say, when the African crested porcupine was announced, I was like, oh, that one's actually pretty different to the Indian porcupine. I thought their crest was a lot more prominent, but honestly, looking at a lot of the Indian porcupine, not necessarily the case. They also have a pretty prominent crest, so I think the African crested porcupine will be a fine enough stand-in for these as well, if you so wish to do that. But yeah, I haven't even mentioned which zoo this is. This is the Aachener Tierpark, or Zoo of Aachen, and yeah, we got a very nice, large Indian porcupine habitat over here. Nice rock walls around it. Yeah, like a lot. Indoor viewing, pretty cool. Next up, we've got Dierenpark Amersfoort. This is one of my favorite areas of any zoo. This is in the city of Old, where yeah, it's completely themed around like historic things and how throughout history we have interacted with the animals. I'm not sure exactly how the porcupines fit into that story of the area, but they do have a really cool habitat over here. Got some human elements in it, a bit of an immersion to the area. Yeah, just a pretty decent, nice exhibit of the Indian porcupine. And also, as you go up to the stairs that bring you to the lion, you can also see the porcupines from above, and here they did hang out. I saw a lot more. And yeah, I will say for the Indian porcupine, they are outside more than the African ones, from what I've seen. But yeah, that might just be good luck or not. Anyway, next zoo is the Zoo of Amsterdam, Artis. And yeah, they have a pretty tiny, I will say, porcupine exhibit over here. This is part of the small mammal house, and it's adjacent to that. I don't think you can actually see their indoor holding from the small mammal house, because it's in the corner over here. You can't really see the corner animals. But yeah, that is pretty much all there is there. So next up we have Kasteelpark Born, or Castlepark Born, which is named that way because the zoo is actually next to a ruin of a castle, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, over here we got the porcupine exhibit, and this is where I mostly got that stereotype from, like with all the concrete pipes and just piles of wood and things like that. Definitely very apparent here. We can also see some peafowl very prominently in the shot over here. It's not necessarily a shared enclosure, it's just free roaming peafowl that happen to be hanging out in their enclosure. But here we can see the porcupine, and also we can see a bunch of them. They have a lot over here sitting in their little shelter area. But yeah, they do have a very sizable enclosure, so it's by no means a bad thing that they have this many. Yeah, that is that enclosure, and we can also see it from the other side a little bit more. Here we can see them roaming around and just being all freaking cool. I can't wait to see these guys in the game, because yeah, I really wonder if the quills are gonna move around just as much like they do here, because that is really freaking cool. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on Tuesday. So yeah, anyway, next zoo is going to be Parc Animalier de Bouillon. My French is amazing, as you can tell. This is a decent enclosure. What's interesting about this enclosure to me is that it has a mesh barrier, whereas most of the enclosures we've seen so far do have some sort of solid barrier that is a bit more difficult to climb. It almost made me think that you wouldn't be able to have a mesh barrier, but apparently you can, because they do it here. So yeah, that is pretty much all I had to show here. We're gonna go through these pretty fast, because yeah, a lot of these you don't have that much to say about, especially this one, Uilen-dierenpark de Paay. Yeah, we've talked about the Paay in at least one previous episode of this series. It's not amazing, and this porcupine exhibit is a great example as to why. It is tiny. They did have young, so that was cool, I guess. But yeah, other than that, there is not. Oh, look at how disgusting it looks. Okay, moving on to the next zoo, and that will be Duisburg. And Duisburg actually has two exhibits for the Indian porcupine. This one over here is just for the porcupine. Very high walls around it, very high glass viewing area as well. Yeah, not too much to see. And moving on to their second enclosure, we have a shared enclosure with the marabou stork, which is really cool. It's one of my favorite birds. I have a few, but yeah, we can see a very spacious open grassy field, and yeah, there should be porcupine on here as well. I didn't see them, but they are listed here on the zoo's map, so they should be here as well. So yeah, that is pretty much it for Duisburg over here. So let's move to the next zoo. And now we are in Gaiazoo. Gaiazoo has a shared meerkat and porcupine enclosure. It's interesting that they have the Indian porcupine mixed with the meerkats, although I'm not exactly sure. Like, Zootier listed them as Indian porcupine, but I feel like the zoo itself had a sign that listed them in Africa as their range, so maybe there is some mess up there. But it would still fit in Gaiazoo, because Gaiazoo is not necessarily country focused, it's biome focused, so the porcupine of course still would fit the savanna biome theme, I suppose, even if it was an Indian one. I'm not exactly sure, but here they are. Pretty cool. Again, hanging around on the inside. Then, next up, we have the zoo of Krefeld. We're going to have a very quick pass by the enclosure, because I had a very short visit to this zoo, so I did not really check out things for very long. But that was the porcupine exhibit. I'll check it out when I visit the zoo another time. Next up, we have the zoo of Lille, also a French zoo. And we've got a mixed meerkat porcupine exhibit. The meerkats also have their own little space in the exhibit next to this one, where they can get away from the porcupine, I guess. But yeah, we got a nice little sand pit, some backstage that we just saw. But this is pretty much all of it. So yeah, let's go and move on once again. Then this zoo is Mondo Verde, which is also a pretty large botanical garden. I was not a huge fan of this park. Maybe it's because I went in the winter, so the garden wasn't on its fullest show. But yeah, this over here is the porcupine exhibit in the kind of Indian slash Moroccan, maybe. I think it was just like desert garden was the idea here. That's a decent enclosure. It's not that bad. So yeah, that is it for Mondo Verde. Then next up we have Pairi Daiza, and the Indian porcupine in Pairi Daiza are in the kind of Indonesia area, and we have a pretty cool enclosure for them over here. I had one gripe with this enclosure, which I thought was just a little bit of a shame. Like, you've got all this theming on the outside here with the bricks, and some parts of the enclosure also have that brick on the inside, but most of the enclosure wall is just this black wall, and I thought that was so boring. Like, you got this really cool themed wall, why not put that on the inside of the enclosure either? It doesn't look that climbable, so I really wonder why they couldn't get that in there. I don't know. It's still a really good looking enclosure. That was just one thing where I was like, come on, Pairi Daiza, you have so much budget, why can't you do that one thing? Because I mean, Amersfoort had like a brick wall on their enclosure, and they couldn't escape from there, so I don't really see what the problem here would be. But yeah, still a pretty good looking enclosure, really quite nice, and we even have Ganesha over there. So yeah, let's move on to the next zoo. So this is Pakawi Park, and Pakawi has a decent porcupine enclosure, I would say. It's spacious, you know. It has some slightly weird things going on over here, especially as we move a little bit further. There is this like pit, and I don't know, like there's this underground thing. I have no idea what this is. It was not accessible, and it just kind of confused me. But you also have an indoor viewing for the porcupine as we go to the right over here. And what's nice about this indoor viewing area is that there's also some red lights keeping the porcupines lit for us to see, but keeping it nice and dark for the porcupine. I'm not sure, like, it's not really a night house because they can go outside, and like the whole day-night thing is still pretty clear to them. But yeah, I mean, porcupine are nocturnal animals, so maybe being in the darkness makes them a bit more active. I don't know. Anyway, almost at the last zoo. We are here at ZieZoo, and here in ZieZoo there's this whole area with a bunch of different meerkats, mongoose, all sorts of things. Also some shared habitats between like the red river hog and the mongoose, or the meerkat. But the porcupine is not a shared exhibit. They have their own little space over here, and still you can see all of these burrows and things, so they definitely do also burrow themselves, which is pretty cool to see. But yeah, here we have the very basic almost concrete tunnels and things, lots of logs. Yeah, this is almost like the textbook porcupine exhibit from what I've seen. So yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, as we're wrapping up ZieZoo over here, I just want to show you guys some cute footage of a porcupine drinking, since that's something that I've only seen here. Oh my god, so special. And now we're gonna move to our last zoo of the video. Yeah, we have two zoos with a Z. How is that possible? Last is the Zonnegloed. This is a animal sanctuary, so it's not really a zoo. It's just a company, non-profit, that takes in animals from all sorts of sources, like zoos that don't want them anymore, or zoos that go bankrupt, people who hold these animals as pets but can't take care of them anymore, or have been taking such bad care of them that they had to be taken away from them. So yeah, sanctuary. So I wasn't expecting too much of this place, but they actually have some pretty cool enclosures. And yeah, this is the meerkat porcupine enclosure. And that was it for this video. And that's where we're gonna leave it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next video. Hope you will enjoy the pack. I think I'll get one more of these out before the pack comes out on Tuesday. So look forward to that. Probably gonna have either the gazelle or the addax. But yeah, look forward to that. I'll see you then. Bye bye. Just wrapping up the ZieZoo over here. Some really bird. Shut up.